Talk with Sri Lankans is delighted to introduce Rahul Rahubadde for today's episode. Rahul was born and raised in Panadura, Sri Lanka. He moved to England with his parents at the age of 7 before migrating to New Zealand in 2011. Rahul studied at Wellington College and was appointed head boy in 2017. His academic achievements and leadership role in college paved the path to enter the University of Otago with an academic scholarship. For his contribution towards representing the Sri Lankan community in New Zealand, Rahul was bestowed with the Outstanding Overall Achievement Award presented by United Sri Lanka Association.
My name is Rahul Rahubadde. I'm 21 years old. I'm currently finishing my bachelor's degree in biomedical sciences, and I major in genetics and pathology. I study here at Victoria University. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a born leader. I think all great leaders, or some great leaders, they have like 3 main qualities. They're very good communicators, they're very decisive, and they're also pretty well organized. And I think when I was given leadership roles, the people around me saw that I may have had these qualities, but in reality, I'm like always working on them. I'm still working on them. But the main thing to recognize is that these 3 attributes, they're skills, so they can be learnt by anyone. Again, I don't really think too much about my strengths, which I guess it could be a weakness in itself. But definitely one of my weaknesses is that I like overcommit to things or people, and that can be pretty draining, both mentally and in terms of the time that it takes. When you're moving to a different country, I guess it's daunting for anyone. But for me in particular, after the first few days, I got pretty settled, and I don't think I really faced any hardships as such in those first few days. So, yeah. I first came to New Zealand in 2012, towards the end, late September, I think it was. So at that time I was 12 or 13 years old. And at that age, what I find is that a lot of kids, especially immigrant kids, they're very adaptable. So a lot more adaptable than people think. And making friends kind of just comes naturally to them, because lots of kids are just trying to make friends anyway. So what I found was that thinking too much about trying to relate to other people isn't going to do much, because kids at that age find common ground on just about anything. Just be yourself and it should work out fine. It's very different. In New Zealand, things are a lot more slow paced compared to Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, I feel like everyone's in a hurry, People are in a hurry to get to work, kids are in a hurry to wake up, get into the van, go to school. Whereas in New Zealand, you're not as rushed. You can take your time with things. But that does not mean that life in New Zealand is easy. If you want to be successful, if you want to achieve your goals, you still have to work just as hard, regardless of the country. The primary education system and the early childhood education system here in New Zealand is very different to that in Sri Lanka. In New Zealand, they have an emphasis on letting the kid have fun at school and giving them like a little taste of what they could pursue in the future, as opposed to Sri Lanka, which has a very strict and rigorous primary education system that focuses on academics. and study stuff. But I would really hesitate to say that one is better than the other. They both have their advantages and disadvantages. The only thing that I can comment on are like my personal experiences. So the one thing I can say for certain is that I wouldn't have had as much success in my studies or my extracurriculars if it wasn't for that really strong foundation that was laid down in Sri Lanka. I draw on both New Zealand and Sri Lanka for my cultural influences. When you're a immigrant kid in a different country, it's hard to feel like you belong to a very specific group or any group, to be honest. You don't feel like you can fully relate to the Sri Lankan kids back home in Sri Lanka, and you don't feel like you can fully relate to the Kiwi kids who were born and raised here. And you know that you can feel lost at sometimes, and I certainly did. But what I realized is that not fitting into any particular group doesn't mean that you're lost per se. It means that you've kind of found your own perspective, your own culture. It's this weird and wonderful mesh between the two. And that's something you should be proud of. You know, I like to paint Sri Lankan landscapes as much as New Zealand landscapes, and I like to cook and eat Sri Lankan curries as much as, you know, fish and chips. So there's this influence of both Sri Lanka and Kiwi stuff in whatever I do. I think I use my hobbies and my interests as a way to explore my cultural influences. So things like my paintings, drawings, and, you know, cooking and photography, I guess. I feel like New Zealand, and I guess in particular Wellington, has a very strong Sri Lankan community. Lots of families, they meet up in informal occasions, you know, like ceremonies and festivals and such, as well as informal ones. You know, Tapi and I, we play badminton with Sri Lankan families every Saturday. So there's always a friendly Sri Lankan face you can talk to. I think the interaction between the Sri Lankan community and the university societies or even high school societies is a bit lacking at the moment. When I was originally studying in Dunedin in Otago University, and I was part of the Sri Lankan Students Association of Otago University, and we would host events for the local Sri Lankan community there. But ever since I came to Wellington, I haven't really seen too much of that kind of interaction. So I think that's something we can definitely work on. Right now, I think the best way I can contribute is by joining the Sri Lankan Students Association of Victoria University. But in the long run, I think that contribution has to come from my career. So yeah, I guess I have to do something great to make you guys proud. Okay. To the kids, I'd say believe in your abilities and always be confident, and the rest will just follow along naturally. Whereas to the parents, encourage your kids. That's something my parents have always done, and I wouldn't have achieved anything without them, obviously. But also just take it easy. You know, don't worry about them too much. Kids can be very resilient and can handle themselves sometimes. I guess there are sometimes where you just need goals, and for me, goals have always helped. So I set myself a long term kind of idea, which I try to achieve through small short term goals. But again, I don't think about it too much because I found dwelling on these things and kind of scrutinizing yourself for not achieving like the smallest details won't get you anywhere. So have a long term goal, but take it slow, and that will help drive you forward. This is a good question. A lot of people ask me this question. I honestly don't have a real answer for that because in Wellington College, that whole process is determined by the students. It's you don't create a campaign for yourself saying I should be head boy. There's nothing like that. It's what other people think of you, and they express that feeling through their vote. And I suppose the people around me saw that I was fit for the role, so I got it. But the truth is that no one, at least from the people I've talked to who had the role prior to me, no one is truly ready to take that role. You know, they always have certain doubts about it. But once you are put into that situation, you have to learn all the time. And I feel it was that process that made me compatible for that role. So yeah, it's a constant learning curve. Compassionate, um, determined, and creative. Oh, I've got a lot of support from my parents. As I said, the main thing that my parents have been doing is encouraging me. They kind of reinforce the good things that I've done, and they always provide a different perspective when and if I fail. And that's always kind of helped me get through some tough times. And you always go through tough times when you're in high school, or for me, when I was in uni. So it's very important for your parents to be there and provide that kind of, to act as a support web, essentially. Yeah. Oh, I have so many. The classic kind of role model is Barack Obama, I feel, because he's a great role model for anyone. He's a great leader. And for me, just listening to him speak is quite inspiring because I've always aspired to be as good in language as he is. He has a great way of expressing himself through a very few words. So I like that about him. Um, Another person that I really aspire to be like is, I guess, Kumar Sangakkara, because when he originally started playing cricket, he wasn't particularly impressive. He was a good cricketer, but he wasn't great. But he just kept at it and just totally relentless, worked every day. And that kind of work ethic is something that another idol of mine is my dad. Tati is also very much like that. He is constantly working. It's ridiculous. And if I could just have a little bit of that, I feel like it would help me a lot. And the final person is a bit of an oddball. There's this comedian talk show host called Conan O'Brien. He's fantastic because he has this amazing ability to just talk to people and make people feel comfortable. And if you want to be any sort of leader, making people feel comfortable is a very important skill, because for them to open up to you and to have a true conversation with a person, you need them to feel comfortable. And yeah, I've always thought that he's the king of that. So I look up to him. Um, at the end of this year, I'm going to apply for medicine and see if I get into that. If I don't, then I'll probably pursue um, some sort of research pathway. Right now, I'm pretty well set to actually do research in genetics. I'm doing a research assistant job here in Victoria. I'm enjoying it as well. So yeah, it's either one of those two. Yeah. I like to paint. I like to like sketch things, just random doodles. In addition to that, I watch a lot of movies. I really enjoyed like doing drama and in particular like filmmaking in high school. I directed this school play in high school, which was a lot of fun. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to engage in drama as much as I would like to in university because there's just so much work. But whenever I can, I like to, watch a movie or something like that. I watch cricket. I'm not very good at playing cricket. And I used to play, things like social basketball in high school. And obviously the badminton. Me and my party, we play badminton every week. That's about it. It's not looking too good, is it? I think we can we can do a lot better. We just need to get our priorities straight and just refocus, and I think we'll be back on top in no time. High school is a very daunting time for anyone. So if you ever feel lost, I think it's a good idea to lean on your cultural influences and find your own way to kind of celebrate them. It could be joining a dancing club or learning how to play an instrument or painting. The choices are endless. But the important thing is that you're taking pride in where you came from and where you are right now.